And I'm going to let Kerry do Melissa's introduction in a few minutes. We're thrilled to have her with us, though. And she's going to be talking about students taking charge and learning how to participate in your own IEP, which is a great thing to be doing. It's, it's hard to believe the transition. I was thinking how old it is in terms of the law. IDEA itself only happened in the 70s. And I'm having trouble even remembering if the transition was in the late 80s when they redid IDEA or if it was in the early 90s. Of course, don't ever ask a question you don't know the answer of. So I just broke my own rule, but I can look it up while you guys, after I finish doing the COVID update. So hi, everybody, and welcome. COVID is slowing down in some ways. I know the rate climbed by 1,548 looking at yesterday's paper. But the 10,000 was actually more. It's back to the way the rise was a couple of weeks ago, but everywhere across the country and in Massachusetts, people do feel confident that our rate is going down overall. So I don't know if that was just a fluke week when I shared about the 7,800 people getting the infection. There were 280 deaths over the past week, and that actually is 32 more than I reported last week, but it's still, below 300. So it's sad, and it's something, it affects, obviously there's 280 people and families and so many others connected to those deaths. So it's still with us, regardless of how much it's slowing down. In the United States, the growth is down from previous weeks. And there was nearly 400,000 new positive infections, and for a total of 29 million and some change. So that's a lot, 29 million people. And the deaths were up about 8,000. 529,301 people have died. And some of you saw President Biden the other night, and he carries a card with him every day to remind him. And I got to say, on March 10th, when I was the latest I could get the numbers for highest per capita, still the Dakotas, still Rhode Island and Utah and Arizona knocked Tennessee out this week. But Tennessee was, before Arizona the week before. So, and Mass dropped to 33, which is great. So we're actually, 2 better than we were a few weeks ago. So that's really important. And then in terms of congregate care, again, these are the charts, when PDF goes out, you can check them out yourself as well. The good news is overall, there's a downswing. And if you look up here, you get to see staff cases in the state, but you don't get to see provider ones. And I think that's probably just about coordinating those numbers and being able to pull them together. You do see the numbers here where there's 282 clients have recovered in the state operated, 10 have positive cases, 38 have positive cases in the provider system, which is obviously 7 times the size, and 2,100 people have recovered there. In terms of just, overall, the numbers went down by 32, which is great news, but deaths still were deaths, and the deaths were reported less than 5. And we hope to get a summary in the next few weeks of, how many deaths we've had in the system. Of course, we have no idea about others who are living outside of the congregate care. And in terms of, that's 1% and 0.5%. So it's not a really big significant difference in terms of who's got COVID. But it's there, and so that means it's a risk. And then I know one of the big things really here is going to be visitation over the next week to see if we can open up visitation at the congregate homes. So I wanted to go through it quick because Melissa's got a presentation. I want to hand the ball over to Kerry to introduce her to us, and really happy to have you with us, Melissa. I'm going to stop sharing here. Kerry, do you want to introduce?
Right. Yes. Hi, everybody. Kerry Mahoney here from the ARC of Massachusetts, and I'm thrilled that today that Melissa Winchell is joining us. Melissa's been doing a number of actually webinars for the ARC of Massachusetts on resilience and parenting, and does a lot with social media posts, where I saw her video of her daughter presenting at her IEP. And I know this is something that, you know, so many of us struggle with. How do we have our kids participate in a, you know, a meaningful way? You know, so Melissa's going to share what she's done. So welcome, Melissa, and she's going to start sharing her screen and telling us a little bit more about her daughter, Moriah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me today. It's such a joy to be here. So just a little bit of background, first of all. So I am an associate professor of secondary education and educational leadership at Bridgewater State University. So my background is in education. I have, my entire career has been in Massachusetts public ed. This is my 22nd, I'm finishing my 22nd year of teaching, and I'm happy to say I still love public education and still so proud to be a part of it here in the Commonwealth. Beyond that, I am married. My spouse is here on the call. Shout out to you, Jay. And we have 3 children. All 3 of our kids have a variety of needs. Our daughter, Moriah, is now 11 and she's in 5th grade, but she's not our first kid who has an IEP or had an IEP. So we have been doing IEPs in our family for a long, long time. So what I want to share today, I share from experience, and then also you know, just wanting to share our own growth as a family as we think with you around this whole idea of how do we include our children, not just in their schools, but also in their IEP meetings. And I think we're all real familiar with this term that we hear a lot in the disability world, right? That there should be nothing about us or about them without them. So what we're thinking about today is how to include students in their IEP meetings, and I'll share with you some of the ways that we've tried to do that. I invited my daughter to join me for the presentation today, but she's playing Barbies. Hard to compete with Barbies, but I do have a video she made for you of her IEP presentation. So I'll be sharing that with you in a moment, because it would be terrible of me to be saying nothing without them, nothing about them without them, and then not have her actually here. But this is Moriah. So she's in 5th grade this year. She goes to the public school in our town. She's included there with some pullout. So I'm happy to talk more about that for folks who have questions. Moriah has a couple diagnoses, among them Down syndrome and autism. She also has a few behavior diagnoses, ADHD, oppositional defiance disorder, lots of things going on. And she does show a lot of signs of selective mutism as well. So I'm not surprised that she didn't want to come on camera today. Again, part of the reason why we videoed. Moriah is kind of one of those kids, I think for a lot of us, our children need what I call long on-ramps to things. So I don't know about you, but for my child, I can't just thrust her into something new and expect that she's going to be successful. My job as her parent, and then as an educator, this is the way I think as well. But the question I ask myself is, how do I design an on-ramp so that Moriah can get access to that understanding, to that level of participation, and understanding that she's going to need a longer on-ramp than other children might need, especially typical children, and that she might need a lot more supports on the on-ramp. So I'm not assuming that she can't get there. I'm just realizing that I'm going to need to design some supports, a ramp, if you will, to get her there. So we've done that in a lot of ways as we've thought about how to help her to become a participant in her IEP meeting. So here on the left, you can see a picture of her. This was taken when she was in 3rd grade. What I love about this picture is you can't immediately tell which kiddo she is. So if you're like squinting at your screen and you can't tell, that's exactly the point. I think this is what inclusion looks like, right? When there's if you really need to know, this is like her here, kind of her little head tucked in the middle, all the kids piled on top. This is what inclusion is, right? When you look at a photo and you almost sort of miss it, right? You miss that there's a visibly disabled person in that photo because they're just part of the crowd. So I'm so proud to say that we've worked hard at inclusion, and our school district has been a wonderful partner with us in that. As we've been working on inclusion in school, we've also started to realize that Moriah needs to start understanding interdependence. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute. But, you know, when we think ahead to when our children turn 22, you know, we think about things like supported decision making, for example, right? I can't just suddenly expect that when Moriah turns 22, she's going to know how to make decisions with a group of people around her. So a couple of years ago, we started, and you can see this in the picture on the right, we assembled a group of adults who are close to Moriah, whom she trusts and loves. This includes a couple educators from our school district, as well as some others who've been real important in her life, and a few of her typical friends from her classroom. And we call this group Moriah's Circle. This is our early start at supported decision making, and it's also one of the ways we've on-ramped for her to become participatory in her IEP meetings. So pre-COVID, we were meeting every couple months. Moriah is a baker. Some of you who follow me on social media know that this is the case. So she bakes for these meetings. We usually have breakfast meetings. And we began this process with this group of people of helping Moriah to identify her strengths, right? Being able to talk about herself was really difficult for her. It did not come naturally. So what am I good at? What do I like to do? And so these are some of the on-ramps that we created so that Moriah could then be part of an IEP meeting. So I thought I would share a little bit with you about how she's become involved in her IEP meetings. So we began just last year. I called a team meeting in the fall. So Moriah's annual IEP meeting usually happens in the spring, but I usually call a fall meeting because I want to check in with the new team, the new grade, see how things are going. My question, because I'm an educator and I've been one my whole life, the question I always make sure I ask at every meeting is, what can I do to support you and your work? So I always want to know that from the beginning of the school year. So last fall, we had a team meeting. You can see Moriah in both the photos. She's this one here with the striped shirt on, and she put together a PowerPoint presentation talking about what she likes about school and what she doesn't like about school. And I will say, I was shocked that she not only came and sat in at the meeting, but then actually read her PowerPoint aloud to her group of teachers who had gathered that day. I was surprised because Moriah can be very quiet at school. It's that selective mutism that sometimes kicks in, but she did, and she did an excellent job. So since then, we've been providing opportunities when the team meets for Moriah to create something to share with her team, and then to come at the beginning of the meeting to say hello to everyone. Sometimes she bakes and she passes out cookies and muffins, and then she makes her presentation. Sometimes we've recorded these presentations because we never know whether Moriah is going to speak or not. We just had our team meeting in February, and Moriah insisted that she did not want to record it, that she was going to speak at the meeting. And then we got to the meeting, which was on Zoom, and she did not speak. So we just roll with it, right? She can still show her slideshow. She asked Dad to read her slides for her. Great. She was there. She said hi to everyone. People still got to know quite a lot about her. She did, however, make a recording of her slideshow for you. So I'm going to show that to you in just a moment here. Before I do, I want to just talk, though, about how to create these on-ramps for our children to be involved in their IEP meetings. And there are 4 things I think that, for me at least, have been really important considerations. So the first one is, always we want to design our on-ramps around our kiddos' strengths, right? So whatever your child is good at, you want to capitalize on that strength. So we don't have an expectation that our child's going to sit through a 2-hour IEP meeting if that's not their thing, right? And my kid has ADHD. She's not going to sit through a 2-hour IEP meeting, but she loves her team. She loves baking. So she can walk in with a basket full of cookies and be excited to be there and suddenly have a role for the time that she stays in the meeting. Some other ideas that I've seen that have worked for us and for other families I know, a lot of kids share a piece of their schoolwork. They pick out something that's their favorite thing they've done in school, a craft they've done, something they've done in art class, a musical performance. They can read aloud. So if they're just really proud of their reading skills, they can come and read part of a chapter of a book to the team. They can show off a science experiment or a project they've done, or even they can create a video and show the video. And maybe the video is just, hey, this is my pet dog and he's so important to me, right? Or this is my room. I just want my team to see like what a cool room I have. So I think wherever our kids are at, we want to make sure that their participation in the IEP meeting capitalizes on what's important to them and on their strengths. The second thing I want to say is that it's really important that we design a process. So we need to think of an on-ramp not as a product, but as a process that unfolds over time. So I, the parent, am not designing something for my kid to do at the IEP meeting. Instead, I'm involving my child in that process of getting ready for the IEP meeting. So we can ask our kids, how do you want to be a part of the meeting, right? Let our kids choose their slideshow backgrounds, type their slideshow if they're able to do that. Pick out the work that they want to display. For us in our family, it usually takes me a couple weeks to help Moriah get ready for her IEP meeting. You know, the PowerPoint doesn't just materialize in one day. That's not the way my kiddo works. She needs like 5 minutes, every day for multiple days to kind of work on something and to create a product. So we want to engage them in that process. And then because I know that my child isn't just going to show up with a slideshow and be comfortable, she and I rehearse the slideshow. So she practices with me, she practices with our family members, and we just sort of make a game out of it. The third thing is sometimes we have to design on-ramps for the on-ramps. So you want to provide ways for your child to practice some of the skills or the presentation itself, as I just mentioned before the IEP meeting. I mentioned the Moriah's circle, the photo you saw in an earlier slide, that has been a great forum for that. So last year we had Moriah present and share some of her ideas for her IEP slideshow at her circle meeting. So she was able to do that and to learn to, as I mentioned before, talk about her strengths, identify her hobbies before she got to the IEP meeting or before she made her slides. And the last thing I cannot emphasize enough, one of the best pieces of advice I received in terms of educating a kiddo with Down syndrome, I had never thought about in this way as an educator, and I'll pass it along to you, which is never say no when your child is learning. So I'm not talking about discipline or behavior or any other thing, but I am saying when you're engaging your child in this process of learning how to present, how to talk about themselves, how to pick a piece of artwork for their IEP meeting or how to create a slideshow, you always want to keep it positive, always make it fun. If they make a mistake, we don't say, no, don't do it that way. We say, that was an interesting choice. What about thinking about this other thing, right? So we don't ever want to shut down our child's creativity and ideas. And we don't want to create a power struggle over this, right? It's not about what my kid shows at the meeting. It's really, for me, it's not about that. Like I told you, my kid showed up this year. She didn't even talk after all the rehearsing we had done, right? No big deal. Like I don't sweat it. I'm not there to prove anything to that team. I know my kid. I know who she is. What I'm there to do is to engage her in that process that led to that moment. And I want that process to be successful and fun and a positive experience for her, because that's what's going to build her up over time. So think about taking breaks, doing 5 minutes a day if that's what works. Breaking down that process into chunks of learning and chunks of time, and just make sure that it stays positive, because your child will want to continue to participate year by year when it's a positive and fun experience that they look forward to. All right, so I'm going to show you Moriah's video so that you can actually see what she presented to her IEP team.
Hey. I am Moriah. I am 5th grade IEP Meeting, Wednesday, February 24, 2021. I am smart, well, certified, and qualified. I can do hard things like make popcorn by myself. I manage with books, play baseball and basketball. With better and of my dog and cat. When I grow up, I will go to high school and because the university. I want to be a dentist and doctor and a baker and a builder. I am about my new house. I will live my brother Jackson. I can marry. I want to marry Jack. Say, Daddy, Mom, and Dad can visit me. I will cook a special supper. I want to learn to drive a car with bigger bucks like 200 million. Bake cookies all by myself. Doing kids stand in a pool. Jump into a pool. School is cool. My favorite thing about school is Spider-Man my normal car. This is my journal. I love new car.
Chicken wings. Okay. Can you read the next one to me?
We need 8 of 2.
We need 8 of 2s, but can you read it? How do we read it? 2.
2 multiply, repeat 8.
2 repeat 8. Good job. 4. Good job. Nice job. So I'm going to show your Numicon board here if I can figure out how to do that. Yep. All right. Can you count those?
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.
What comes after 12?
Forget it.
Keep counting. 12. If you don't know, 13.
13, 14, 15, 16.
2 repeat 8 is 16. Excellent job.
Let me poke it, but yummy. Okay, I'll enter that. Okay, I'm gonna go for my IEP meeting. Bye. Hey.
Hey, Melissa, you're muted.
Thanks. Okay, everyone can hear now. Thanks so much for the reminder. All right, so Kerry asked me to share a little bit about outcomes. And the first thing I want to say is that the outcomes for our school team have been, they're not quantifiable, right? I haven't done a research study on this, but I will say after the first time Moriah presented at her very first IEP meeting, her principal was there. And he said to me afterwards, he had never heard Moriah speak so much. She had been in school there for over a year. And, you know, he engages with her every single day. He's one of those amazing principals who does that. But he didn't know she was capable of that much language and that much reading. So I think sometimes it sends a signal to our team, like, yeah, this is what our child is capable of. Those are her words on the slideshow, right? She can read those things. So I think just having that connection. Sometimes we see a slightly different kid than the school sees because maybe they're a little more comfortable at home. It means we can see some interesting behaviors sometimes at home too. But, you know, for my daughter, it means she's much more verbal with me than she is outside the home. So just an opportunity, I think, for the teams to see some other facets of our kids that they may not see in school. I also think it really sends a strong message to our team that we all want to send, which is, again, that message that we started with, right? Nothing about them without them. We shouldn't be talking about the children that we say we serve unless our children are included and unless their voices are somehow represented, and not just through my voice as the parent, but their own voice, their own wishes for their schooling, their own ideas about what their strengths are and what they hope to learn. So in terms of outcomes for our kids, there are so many, but I picked 4 here. One for me that's really important as a parent is, I know we talk about independence a lot in this world of intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities. For me, I value interdependence as a human. And when I think about how I want my daughter to be in the world, I want her to be interdependent in healthy and wonderful ways. We're all interdependent, where we should be. We all need people to support us, right? We all need people to cheer us along. Sometimes we need on-ramps to access things that are hard for us. And we've all been lucky to have people in our lives to help us get to where we are. And so for me, I think having my daughter be a part of the IEP meeting sends the message, look, there's this team of people that you might not have realized are meeting behind the scenes, but they are, and they're here to support you. And being a part of this team and building a relationship with the people around you is really, really important in life. For Moriah, this has done wonders for her self-awareness. So again, thinking about on-ramps, you saw real quickly in her slideshow 2 pages of a journal that we've been using this year. I should mention that I've been practically homeschooling her this year for lots of reasons. And as part of that, I bought this great journal, and it's a lot around self-awareness. So in the back of the journal, for example, we've been making a list all year about hard things that I do by myself. So when we went to create a slide about what are some hard things, she right away opened her journal, flipped to that list, picked out some of her favorites, right? She's beginning to have a schema for who she is and what she can accomplish. That to me just is amazing. I want a self-aware kid who is confident in who she is and in what she can do. The third thing is the self-advocacy piece. I mean, I know are on the same page about that. We want our children to grow up to be adults who can advocate for themselves. They can ask for help when they need help. They can tell us they don't need help when they don't need help, right? They can go to the state house and advocate for laws that benefit them, all of those things. And I think that starts in these kind of on-ramps to those bigger ideals that we all have for our children. And then increased skills. So I've made preparing for IEP meetings part of what we do, right? So right now we're homeschooling, so it's part of our academics at home. I know many schools who will make it part of what the teachers do with the children in school. So the special ed teacher or team will help the kiddo prepare for their IEP meeting. And because there's so many skills to learn. I mean, you saw in the video, right? There's reading, there's writing, there's keyboarding, there's graphic design. There's, metacognition, right? Thinking about your own thinking, planning, so executive functioning, thinking about how to organize ideas and which slides should come first. So it's just such a ripe opportunity for our students to be and our children to be part of that process and to become better students and better people as a result. So I just want to leave you also with my contact information. So if you want to reach me, you can do that at the email, my email address at Bridgewater State. And I am, as Kerry mentioned, I'm on Twitter and Facebook as well. My Twitter account is my more professional account. So feel free to reach out there anytime as well. And I think, Kerry, you wanted me to take some questions from folks, or?
Yes, thanks so much. That Leo wrote that he loved your the on-ramp ramping process to get you there. So at this point, does anybody have any questions? You can either put them in the chat box or you can unmute
I have
yourself.
one right away for Melissa. It's Leo. I just want to ask you in the very beginning, when you started on the journey with Moriah, what are some, because I like the on-ramp to the on-ramp concept. And, could you share with people, because people might find this, oh man, my son or daughter, it's going to take a while, to get there. And I bet you had some of those steps, you and your husband. So can you share with people sort of a taste of that in the very beginning,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I think if somebody had said to me, oh, my kid will be a 4th or 5th grader presenting at their IEP meeting, I would have been like, I can't even get this child to stand next to me in line at a Target without like falling on the floor, licking the tiles, and hitting the person next to us. There's just no way that is ever going to happen. So I appreciate what you're saying, because I think we have to, as parents, take a very long view. And also, I think, be willing to let our kids perform in the way that they're going to, right? So if they're going to show up and not do what we planned, okay, then we're going to take it as a victory that they showed up, right? And high five ourselves. So, I'm like every parent, I'm going to go home and have a little cry that my kid didn't do what I expected them to do or what we had planned. I'm a crier. I will go home and, have my few moments of self-pity. Like, I worked so hard and we worked so hard and they didn't get to see it. But I think it's so important as parents that we cheer ourselves along for every single victory, because I didn't, to think that my kid would be a reader, right, would be somebody who can write, and all of every little thing, even just to sit in a chair and attend. She actually threw me out of I'm in my home office. She threw me out of the room when she created that video. I was not lurking. I was not pushing buttons for her. It was like, Mom, get out. You're in my way. I've got something to do. So I think just, letting them be who they are. It's like, well, however the video comes out, I can't do anything about it. So we have to, I think, both take a long view and kind of keep at it, right? And then sometimes just, well, it is what it is. This is who they are. I will say, Leo, saying that reminded me, there was a principal when my sons were in school. We have older children who are almost 20, well, actually just turned 25 and 23. And our oldest son has an intellectual disability, unspecified. And I remember when he was in 3rd grade, we had a lovely principal at the time. And the school actually was a K through 6, a K through 8. And the principal said to me something I've never forgotten, which was, we were in an IEP meeting and he said to the classroom teacher, you're overwhelmed about supporting this kid right now and you're discouraged about everything he can't do. But I'm the principal of the school and I'm going to get to see this kid from 3rd grade all the way to 8th. And there will be progress over time. So your job is to be the 3rd grade teacher and to do what you can. And you can't even imagine what's going to happen in the next year and the next year and the next year. So I think about that a lot. When I say take the long view, I mean, it's a privilege that we get to take the long view as parents. And I told you I'm a crier. And to envision what our kids can be, right? And to just be willing to walk the road with them.
Thank you, Melissa. We do have a chat from Susan. And what are your recommendations on how to engage older students nearing graduation and transition to adulthood who haven't been engaged or encouraged to be in the past?
Yeah, this is such a great question because our state doesn't, and depending on our districts, yes, they have to invite kids to the IEP meetings. It's not always supported, right? It's not like the school's making on-ramps for them usually. It's not always even super encouraged. So yeah, we were in the same boat. We ended up with a high school kiddo who could care less about his IEP at the time, did not want to show up to his IEP meetings, just so I understand the flip side of it as well. What I would say is to think about when your next IEP meeting is, in teaching, we have something called backward design, right? So like, here's the goal. So let's say your next IEP meeting is in April. So what I would be asking myself as a parent is, what can I do with my child between now and April that would create some on-ramps to that meeting? So for example, if your child doesn't know there's an IEP team, right? You've never really talked about what an IEP is and that there's a team of people that meet every year. That's a conversation that you need to have, right? If your child, talk to your child about how do they want to be involved. I think this is also a trick we teachers know. You don't ask whether they want to be involved. You say, would you like to be involved in this way or in this way? So give choices, right? You can, show the video clip of your football game, or you can, create a slideshow or show a YouTube video or whatever it is. So provide choices for them and don't expect that they're going to want to sit through the whole meeting, even though they're allowed to. Allow them to kind of say their piece. It's hard for them. They don't always feel comfortable hearing about all the things they're not doing or all the supports they need. And that's okay if they don't want to sit through that. So let them say what they want to say, and, don't expect them to stay for the entire thing.
All righty. Thank you. How about anybody else? Anybody else have a question? And again, you can unmute yourself or you can chat it in. I'm really excited because this is IEP time. So these are just some great suggestions on how to get your kids at the team at the meeting. I know I was working with some kids in the high school, and even the first time they just came and introduced all their team members. That was really nice. And you're right, you can really see the difference. Okay, there's a question.
From Sterling, yes. He's been private messaging me, so.
Oh, okay. All right. Sterling, go ahead. Do you want to, you can unmute yourself if you want.
Hey,
Hi, Sterling.
my question is, I like to read. I like to read books.
That is awesome. What's your favorite book?
I like Thomas the Train.
Oh, so many people I know love Thomas the Train. That's awesome. Have you ever been to an IEP meeting, Sterling?
No, I think this is my first time.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm so glad you were able to join us today. Thank you so much. And thanks for unmuting yourself and saying hello. I really appreciate it. It's good to have you here.
When is the next one? The next meeting?
Leo, I think you do these every week, right?
Yes, every Monday, Sterling. You're welcome to join us, and they're different topics. I won't say that they're not always as vibrant and entertaining as this one, but we have good topics usually every week. So I don't want to take anything away from our.
Can you put the Zoom information for next Monday?
Actually, the link, Kerry, the link,
Zoom information.
Sure, I'll tell you what. I'll put a website, but I think the link you used for today will work next week.
It's the same link.
It's the same link.
So you just
week, Sterling.
Yeah.
Can you put it in the
I'll put in the website where you can register. I will put that there. Okay. In a minute, I'll get it in there.
Okay.
Thanks, Sterling.
Yeah. Thank you, Sterling. How about anyone else? Anybody want to share some of the ways your kids have been part of their IEP?
I see Lisa's hand. I don't know if you can.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's just, I don't know, it's so well done and so beautiful and touching to watch this whole process and how you've thought about her with each step. And you're always so good at explaining in a way that's really accessible for everyone. For me anyway. And I guess I'm just so impressed and thinking a lot about how my daughter's already participated some, she's 14. I've always had her come in since about third grade to say hi and see the team. But, I've seen these from you. I guess you know, we're friends and I see it on social media and I'm always so in awe. So I'm kind of glad to see your thinking process and how you've done it, and watching her present. It's just very inspiring. So I have this sort of like very mundane question, but what program are you using? Like I would use Google Slides, whatever, but you have great pictures and, you know, you've got all the good text. I know it's because of Jason, but
It's a great question. So that is Google Slides. However, there are these really cool websites that allow you to use some really nice pre-made templates for slides. And they're, I mean, obviously you can pay for more cooler stuff, but I never do that. There are a lot of cool free things. So my favorite one, and the one this one comes from, I just put in the chat for you, Lisa, it's slidesgo.com.
Okay.
But if you Google if you just Google free templates for Google Slides, you'll get a bunch. There's a ton of them out there, and it's awesome. They come with, you know, everything's already pre-made for you, and you just kind of put in your text.
Awesome. All right.
Makes
Great.
me look smarter than I am, is basically what I'm saying.
I'm just curious too, Melissa, if you're familiar with I'm Determined.
No.
It is a website that also gives you some slide templates around self-determination and ways to build those skills. So very colorful. And I'm wondering, you know, I haven't been on it in a while, but I'm wondering if they also have something around, you know, preparing for your IEP meeting.
Oh, okay. I'm going to post that link in the chat. I just found it. Yep. Thanks, Leo. All right. I will definitely check that out. Thank you so much. That's Kerry.
Yeah.
That's a great resource. I've never heard of it. Lovely.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. And I love too that, you know, in Massachusetts, we're doing a lot with charting the life course.
Yes.
And, you know, using some of those frameworks. And I know some families, and I see no reason why an individual can't use that trajectory. And you talked about that really in your first slides about what do you like about school and what don't you want to happen. So, you know, even that, you know, simple bubble with the arrow pointing up and the arrow pointing down of what you want, what you don't want, it's just, it's a great introduction to who you are. I love the person-centered approach because I think it really, you know, I mean, you know, educators reading IEPs, you know, it's a lot of words, but when you see a person and you hear from a person, you remember that person, and you probably are taking away different things. That's maybe than just what's written in their IEP. But anyways, it's just a little commentary for me. Sorry.
No, I'm so glad you mentioned charting the life course. I'm grabbing the link as well. I haven't been trained yet, but I have used a lot of their resources in Moriah's circle. So I didn't mention that, but I'm so glad you brought it up.
Good.
You may have seen in the photo that I had showed, we've created a bulletin board as a circle. That's kind of her life chart. We started that with them, and we got a lot of the ideas from charting the life course, and the bulletin board hangs in her room, and then we add to it during circle meetings. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's great. The other thing is, I don't know if you wanted to share about Moriah's great baking and what she's been doing with how you integrate it into her academics and where she donates the bakery items to.
Oh, sure. Thanks. Yeah. So when we went, when the pandemic started a year ago now, I know we're all like in disbelief about that one. We just, everybody had to kind of pivot really quickly. Schools were closed. And so one of the things I decided to do, and that I decided to do along with her team, was to let Moriah do a lot of baking, because she wouldn't really get on her Zoom calls, even though they were much more pared down, right, in the spring than they are now. She wouldn't really involve herself very much. So at my suggestion, the team would get on and a bunch of the therapists would get on at the same time and watch her bake and would bake with her. So we would send the recipe and anybody who wanted to could bake along, and she was directing people over Zoom about how to do the baking. And so it was this really great, fun kind of team activity. And then out of that, we just kind of have kept it going. You know, it's so good for her. Again, those organizational skills, right? You have to do certain things before you do others. I don't know about your kiddo, but my kiddo has a hard time following directions anyway. I mean, she just is one of those people that's wired to not do what people tell her. It's like, why would I bother following directions? So this is one of those, like, you have to follow the directions because you want your cupcakes to come out right. And so then we can use that language behaviorally too, right? Like, good things happen when we follow directions. Fractions, we're learning fractions. So there's just so many great crossovers, I think. And so in the fall, late in the fall, we decided to we were talking to Moriah about baking and about earning money, you know, and trying to start thinking about money sense as well, because we're, you know, learning money. And out of that, long story, but out of that came, she started baking about once a week. And then we started hosting bake sales on our front porch. We just would put out baked goods. We didn't stand there, too cold. And we're a highly quarantined family. So we couldn't interact with people, but she baked and then we put things out. We would write on Facebook on our town page, you know, such and such is what she made. And, you know, donations only, people could take them for free. We didn't care. So she made cookies and things. And and then she gave all the money away to our local food pantry. So she raised almost $3,000 between mid-November and the holiday time. And we're really happy for her. She was able to give the check to the food pantry folks, and they brought her a baking trophy, which is a big deal in my house. Let me tell you, trophies are a thing apparently. And then then we were kind of like, well, now who do we bake for this winter? So right now we've been baking once a week for the 2 group homes in our community. And I, you know, am privileged to know about them because I'm on the board of the Brockton Area Department of Developmental Services. So, so we drop off baked goods once a week over there.
Thank you for sharing that. I just think that's just a wonderful story about giving back to your community. So anyways, I'm looking at the time, and time's up here. There's another chat from Philip about his cognitopia.com about teaching people about doing self-directed IEPs. So anyways, thank you so much, Melissa, and for sharing Moriah's beautiful video and just your wise words about how to get our kids to have a voice at the table. So appreciate it. Thanks
Sure,
so much.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Everybody, hope you have a great day. Weather's going to be warmer, so just hang in there. Okay.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks again, Melissa. Really appreciated it. Take care.
Thanks, Leo. Bye-bye.
Bye.